Right, okay. Now this is the first lesson in Unit 2, now of American West, 1835 to 1895. Now what this lesson does is we're going to focus a little bit on the American Civil War and then look at one of the consequences of the American Civil War, the Homestead Act of 1862. So the outcomes of this lesson, you're going to assess the impact of the Civil War, explain the key concepts of the Homestead Act, and evaluate the achievements and the limitations of the good things, achievements and limitations, things that held it back from being an overall success. So, key topic 2, just as a bit of an overview. This topic includes development of settlement in the West. So we're going to take it further, why people moved to the West in America. We're going to introduce a new unit, ranching and the cattle industry, and then changes in the Plains Indians' way of life. So just as an overview of what's coming up in Unit 2. So first of all, the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865. Just some of the key terms you're going to see in the next slide. Civil War, a war that happens between groups in the same country. This concept was not new, but it's something that needs to be understood when we're looking at this course. Civilian is a normal person. Economy is all about making money and how strong the economy is. And reconstruction is the rebuilding of an area, which needed to happen after the Civil War, especially for the losing side. So, the next bit. What was the Civil War? Now, you don't need to know too much about this for the exam, but you do need to know about the consequences of the Civil War and what happened. So first of all, why was there a Civil War? So in 1861, I'll circle some of the key terms here, because it's really important. 7 southern states set up their own confederacy. Now, confederacy, if we're just going to add some understanding here, confederacy is basically like a splinter group. They split away from the other states of America. Not literally, because that would be impossible, but a confederacy means they split away. Okay, so that's important that you understand that. They were later joined by 4 more, which obviously, you do need to know, but it's just about understanding why this war kicked off. Okay, this triggered a civil war between the Union, the states that didn't leave, and the Confederacy, the states that did leave. Now, the states that didn't leave were based in the north of America. Okay, so it was basically north versus south. So hopefully we get that concept right there. So it says here, going on, there'd been a long argument between the North and the South about slavery. The northern states wanted to stop the use of slavery, while the southern states saw the use of slavery as important to the economy, going back to that key word, building up society. So that's why there was a civil war, the fact that these 7 states and 4 more left the American government and created their own confederacy. And if we look back, confederacy is a splinter group. So what happened? So the Union Army, the northern states, had about 2 million men. The Confederates, the ones that left, had 800,000. In the war, 200,000 were killed in battle of their wounds overall, and a further 416,000 died from disease. So this war was pretty serious. A lot of land, factories, crops and towns were destroyed. It meant there had to be a lot of reconstruction after the war. That key word there, which we'll go back to in a minute. Troops from the West were brought in, replaced in the West by volunteer militias, so soldiers, and it would affect relationships with the Native Americans. Now, we're going to look at this a bit later, but while this Civil War was going on, there were some quite significant battles between the white settlers and the Native American people. But we'll look at that a lot later. The war ended on the 9th of April, 1865, so it went on for 4 years. Confederate General Robert E. Lee met Union General Ulysses S. Grant and offered the Confederates a surrender. So that meant that the southern states needed to begin rebuilding. Okay, a reconstruction. So what you need to understand, who won? The North. Consequences. Well, slavery was ended and citizenship was given to former slaves. So US citizenship. This caused America's population to grow significantly, and we're going to look at that a lot later in the course by looking at groups such as the exodusters. And many people wanted a new start. Now, remember, before this, a lot of people moved across America because of the gold rush, but America had begun to expand, and a lot of people wanted a new start, which was made easier by the laws that were passed by the government at the time. Now, when these groups, when the southern states left the government, the Northern Union group passed two laws, which was easier because there was no one to disagree. The first law was one that we're going to look at in this lesson, the Homestead Act, and the second law, the Pacific Railroad Act, which is going to be the next lesson. Okay, so I'm going to clear that. A good little overview there of the Civil War. One of the questions you've been given is to look at the facts of the Civil War. You just need to have an understanding of what it was all about. So, moving on. The Homestead Act. Once again, I'm going to go through some keywords. Okay, once again, I will draw a few things on here. Homestead is a plot of land that was enough for a family. We'll look at that in a bit later. An acre is a measurement of land. A football pitch is about 2 acres, so you're going to see this when we talk through it. Settlement means people settle, they stay in an area. Filing a claim and proving up. Now, this is to do with the Homestead Act. Okay. Filing a claim is saying that you want a piece of land. You have to pay $10, which was a lot cheaper. And proving up, after 5 years after filing a claim, if you could own your claim if you planted 5 acres of crops. So, what was it? The Homestead Act promoted settlement in the West. It promoted people moving there. Before 1862, now this was before the Homestead Act, the government split land into 640 acres and charged $1 an acre. Now, if we want some quick maths there, that's going to cost $640. That's very expensive. For the ordinary person in America, that was really expensive for them to pay. So the Homestead Act made it cheaper. The land became smaller, but it became a lot cheaper for the ordinary people of society. The American government wanted more people to settle on land in the West so that they could make more money by charging tax. That is horrendously written, but that's fine. So, how was it easier? The plots were 160 acres, enough for a family to survive. Okay, so 160 acres, you could build a house and have plenty of farmland. And it cost a bargain of $10 to register a claim. This was called filing a claim, as we mentioned in our keywords. Now, what the government didn't want all the land in the West to be bought by rich landowners. They didn't want that. They wanted it to be split between people. They wanted to encourage settlement by making it cheap enough so that thousands of small farmers could settle, which would boost the economy, which is something that needed boosting, especially as during this time there was a civil war going on. So, as a result of the Homestead Act, some of the consequences: anyone could file a claim as long as they were head of the family, single, and over 21. If you were an ex-soldier, you could be younger than 21. Anyone who was going to become a US citizen could also file a claim, but unfortunately, Native Americans were not allowed. That's going to cause problems because of their lifestyle, their nomadic lifestyle, their belief in land. It's going to cause conflict. Anyone filing a claim had to live on the land and work it. Now, the government made sure that they put limits on how many claims one person could make. The government didn't want loads of land in the hands of one person. They wanted to spread it. They wanted people to have a chance. Once again, really awfully written, but I'm sure you understand it. Now, once someone lived on the land for 5 years, planted 5 acres of crops, and built a house, they could pay $30 to prove up the land, meaning they owned it outright. So the point of the Homestead Act was to give a piece of land, make people work on it, and give them the opportunity to own it. And how much? For a bargain of overall $40. This was a way the government tried to encourage people to move on to the Great Plains of America, and also westwards. Now, I'm just going to show you some cards. Now, a key thing that you need to understand is what were the achievements of the Homestead Act, what were the positives, and also what were the negatives. Now, you're not going to do a key because I'm going to go through the cards with you. But while you're thinking about it, think about the biggest success of the Homestead Act and the biggest failure, and then explain them a bit further in terms of challenge. So these are the cards. Let's go through them. We'll have a different colour for each, if I can work out how to do that. Red will be negative, green will be positive. So anyone could file a claim over the age of 21, so long as they were the head of the family, including women and former slaves. Let you just have a think about that. That is obviously going to be a positive. Okay. Next one. As a result of the Homestead Act, new settlers from all over the world were attracted to the West for the offer of free land to farm. Now, it depends how you're viewing this. In the eyes of a Native American, that might be quite negative. But for the government, this is a very positive thing. This is something which means that more people are going to come to America, bring new opportunity, bring new ideas, and it means that people are going to spread the word about this opportunity to live in a brand new place that is developing at a rapid pace. Native Americans or Indians were not allowed to file claims on the homesteads. I mean, that, quite obviously, is not good for the Native Americans. By 1876, over 6 million acres of government land had successfully become homesteads. Well, the point of this was for the government to have as many people to claim homesteads as possible. So within 14 years, 6 million acres, that's not a bad amount, okay? The government would have liked probably a bit more, but overall, 6 million in the first 14 years was a positive aspect for the government. It cost $10 to file a claim and register a claim for a homestead. It encouraged thousands of ordinary people to take up the offer of land, not just the rich farmers. Again, positive. Out of 800 million acres of government land, 300 million was sold to the railroad companies, whilst 46% was sold to the highest bidder rather than homesteaders. Now, this is negative because for one very clear reason. It shows that aspects of the Homestead Act were a failure. There were better options, such as the railroad, which we'll look at in a future video. Okay, so that is really key that you understand that there. There were limits on how many claims one person could make to stop rich people from snapping up all the land cheaply under the scheme. Well, straight away, this is going to be something positive because it allows an opportunity for people to have a chance. Oh, that's definitely the wrong colour. It allows people to have a chance at gaining some land, which they never would have had the opportunity in the past. There we go. I finally got to the green pen. Once someone had lived on the land for 5 years, built a house and filmed 5 acres, they could pay $39 and own homestead outright. Slight issue there. Remember, it's $30. That, another positive. It allows people to have an opportunity to purchase their homestead. However, there are negative aspects as well. A key reason for that is you basically had to be successful in farming, which means it all depended on your land and the plot you had as to whether you had a successful harvest. Okay. More successful farms were formed by people buying land from the railroad company. Again, that is definitely a negative because we're considering here the fact that there was a better options, such as the railroad, as we mentioned earlier. Former soldiers under the age of 21 were allowed to file a claim. That's definitely a positive, as it means there's going to be less unemployment, less soldiers to cause issues. 80 million acres of government land was successfully turned into homesteads out of a total of 500 million acres of public land. I mean, that you need to really consider the percentage. That very much for the government will probably be quite a low number, so it could be a negative. Homestead was defined as a plot of land with 160 acres, which was enough to support a large family. Well, definitely, that's good. 60% of the homestead claims were never proved up because the farm struggled or failed. That shows that a lot of it was a failure and goes back to what I said earlier about being successful in farming. Half of the land of Nebraska was owned by homesteaders. This increased the population and enabled it to become a state. Well, this showed that in some areas, it definitely did work. 13 million acres of land had been proved up by 1884, 24 million by 1900. That's open to interpretation, this one. Personally, I would say this was a failure because the government would have expected a much higher number over the long period of time. Some people might see it as a success, as 30% of the land was proved up and lived on permanently. After 6 months, you could file a claim, plough 1 acre, and then sell it on for a profit. That's a negative. Why? Because the government didn't want you to do that. The government wanted people to settle, not to sell it. So, moving on, just one last thing for this. Just get rid of that. And we'll just move on with the last bit. Now, once again, you must really have a clear understanding on the positives and the negatives of this, especially when it comes down to the concept of a consequence. So you could potentially talk about the consequence of certain groups. You could talk about the consequence of the government and how it helped and how it possibly hindered. But this is what you could get, explain 2 consequences of the Homestead Act. So you could talk about how it increased farming on the plains, offered 160 acres of free land, and you could talk about how 6 million acres had become homesteads by 1876. Increasing migration from abroad, many immigrants from Europe took the opportunity to claim free land. But under the railroad, that was probably a much bigger number. So immigrants tended to come towards the railroad land as there was more opportunity. But as a result of the Homestead Act, new settlers from all over the world were attracted to the offer of free land to farm. Okay, $10 was very cheap. And we can give the example of Nebraska, who had a lot of people come over due to the Homestead Act. It wasn't successful in the long term. It was hard to farm without technology, lack of rain, trees, things that we've looked at in previous lessons. 60% of homestead claims were never proved up because the farm struggled or failed. So half the population of Nebraska in the 1860s had left the state by the 1880s. Long-term failure. And loss of Indian land. And we're not going to go into that too much, but it's going to cause conflict and tension because the more land that's given away under the Homestead Act, the more the Native Americans are going to be forced into a reservation. So that is the Homestead Act. If you have got any questions on this, obviously, please let me know. Overall, you just need to understand that this developed settlement, it developed a real buzz to get people into America. But likewise, this was where America was expanding at a rapid pace, and it was going to have a serious impact, both on things like lawlessness, aspects of farming, which in the long run did improve. More importantly, the impact it had on the Native Americans' way of life was huge. And you're going to see it get worse and worse as this course goes on.